Okay, we're gonna try take number 2. I'm hoping I'm not gonna be all squidgy and pixelated because if I am, I don't know, how do you fix something like that? I'm not sure. Let me check. I'm getting the full bars. But it looks crazy.
Hi, Grievers and
Oh,
Groovers.
wait, that is weird. Okay, hopefully. How is it? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Amy, can you hear me? Tommy, can you see me? We were talking about how grief can be very contrary. You can feel completely isolated and alone and left by the person that passed away, or and at the same time you can feel like you've never been more loved because of the outpouring of affection and compassion from your close friends and hopefully some of your family. So it is just this weird, I mean, let's just face it, death is just weird. Grief is just weird. I mean, I was talking to this woman today who lost her mom in May, and we were just talking about how crazy grief can be and how it can make you crazy. I hope you guys can see me and hear me okay. But I want to know how your new year went. I had a very, very quiet, contemplative, chilled New Year's Eve. I did have an invite to my friend Christina's party, but she lives far away. She lives like 40 miles away, and I just didn't want to go anywhere on New Year's Eve. I feel like there's always too much pressure, and I'm 49 now, and I'm just thinking back to all the New Year's Eves that I've experienced where I've told myself, go out, don't be a loser, don't be at home by yourself watching TV with Coco and a blanket or whatever. It's just like, go out. And literally every single New Year's Eve after I was out for like an hour, I was like, why did I come out? I should have just been home. And then especially when you can't get an Uber, you can't get a cab, and you have to pay $1 billion for drinks or entry into a restaurant or whatever. So I decided I'm just gonna hunker down, be at home. I went to see a kids matinee with my friend and her 3-year-old, and I went to see Mary Poppins on the big screen, which I've never seen. It's one of my favorite movies. I usually watch it every Christmas and New Year's. And so on New Year's Eve, I went up to the corner near where I live, and Quentin Tarantino owns a movie theater, and Mary Poppins was playing. So I got to see Mary Poppins on the big screen, and it was really, really fun. And some people dressed up as Mary Poppins, which I thought was adorable. And so yeah, it was great. And then I just came home and I cooked myself a nice little dinner, and then I was binge watching the rest of the PBS series Victoria, which is about Queen Victoria, which was riveting and amazing. And so I was watching that, and you might mock me, but you know what? I don't care. Hi, Saul. Can you hear me and see me? I'm not sure. I've heard that the screen is pixelated, so it looks crystal clear where I'm coming from, but let me know if you can see me. Hi. So we're talking about New Year's Eve. I had a very quiet, reflective New Year's Eve at about 11:15. Something I like to do every year is meditate for world peace, and there's a beautiful guided meditation by Julian Lennon. So that's really lovely, and man, I was in the zone. So I meditated, but then I timed it so that I would be done just a little bit before midnight. So meditated for world peace. P.S. It didn't work, but we're in it for the long haul. I'm pixelated. Balls. This is upsetting. Well, I think you can still hear the audio, so I'm going to keep going, and I apologize. From now, I'm going to have to go live from somewhere else. My friend said, I think it's Spirit. Spirit decides to come in every time you go live. But anywhere in the rock pad, whether it's the living room or in the kitchen, it's weird. Hi, Debbie. I love you. So sorry for the pixelated picture. I'm very sorry. I know it makes me look like some kind of psychedelic monster. But there's nothing I can do about it. I am not technically inclined. My strengths lie elsewhere, and I apologize for the pixelated goodness. So anyway, we were talking about New Year's Eve, and after meditating for world peace, I poured some champagne and did the countdown, toasted to my own bad self because I was by myself. And then I opened up the windows in my place, and then I listened to everybody else ringing in the new year. And it was really funny because there were people. I live across, well, I don't know if you can see it or not. Should we try? There's a condo complex. Well, if you're pixelated, you definitely won't see it. But there's a condo complex or apartment complex in that building right there. There's like 1 million people that live there. And I just opened up the windows on New Year's Eve, and I was just listening to everybody celebrating, and they were all, one guy said, "I love everybody, happy 2018." So I thought that was some good vibes. And then I literally went to bed after that. So, but I wanted to know if you guys are making any New Year's resolutions. I kind of don't believe in resolutions. I believe that you should just live every day as if it were your last, and love big and love hard. Yay, I just stopped being pixelated. I'm excited. And so I kind of think that, resolutions are just intentions. And I set an intention every day when I wake up in the morning. And so that's just, that's an intention. I think there's so much pressure to have a resolution and to also, you know, better yourself, which I think it's great that people want to better themselves, but at the same time I feel like we're all perfect in our own way. It's just like the messages that we get from our pop culture is that you're not enough. You can be skinnier, you can have better skin with less wrinkles and better hair and better this and better that, and it's like, well, I'm pretty happy with who I am, and not that we all can't improve, but I don't know, I'm a little funny about resolutions. Oh no, the thing froze. Now it froze on mine. I also wanted to share with you guys, there's a little kind of worksheet that I do every year on New Year's Eve, and it kind of asks you to reflect on the year that's been, and then kind of gives you more clarity in facing the new year. And if I said to you, do you have any resolutions, or how did your year go? People are kind of like, yeah, pretty good. I'm not sure, but whatever. But then you don't actually think about what it means. And so like this worksheet asks specific questions. Like, what do you want your everyday life to be like in the new year? Saul says he has no resolutions but intentions every day. Keith, your partner, and I both do intentions every day and gratitudes. That's awesome. Yeah, gratitude is just kind of like the hotline into peace, no matter what. And I always say, if you are stressing and thinking about what you don't have, be grateful for what you don't have. Like when I was grieving big time after my dad died, I just thought, this can't be any worse. This pain can't be any worse. And then I thought, well, actually, if I was suffering from cancer, it could be worse. Or if I had a really stressful full-time 9-to-5 job with a boss on me, 24/7, and I wasn't able to actually like take care of the death duties, that could be worse, So I always think about things that I don't have. And also when I was grieving, I found it really comforting. And I know this is going to sound weird, but I watched a lot of Holocaust documentaries, because I felt no matter what pain I was feeling, not to lessen it or to categorize it or, anything like that, but, I just was feeling a lot of pain. But then when I would watch these Holocaust documentaries and just think, well, it's not that kind of pain. And I was grateful. I was grateful for the pain that I had. It's kind of like that old wives' tale. They say that if you put all of your problems into a hat and everybody else in the room puts their problems into a hat, and you start to pick out a problem that you'll take on as your own, that pretty much everyone would just pick their own problem out of their hat instead of other people's problems. So I always think of that, because I always think it can be a lot worse than it is. And we talked last week about what to do with an anxiety attack, and that exercise of, look at 5 things, find 5 things in the room that you can see, find 4 things in the room that you can touch, use all of your senses. 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste, or something like that. And it's just kind of distracts you. So gratitude is the hotline to everything, to any kind of peace, whether it's feeling better, if you're grieving, because if you've lost a loved one, yes, it's awful and it's sad, but then if you remember how grateful you are for having loved them and for having had them in your life, it just takes away the sting just a little bit, just a tiny little bit. But in the worksheet, it was talking about things like, what personal qualities do you want to develop or strengthen in the new year? And so it's kind of like just taking your abilities and kind of magnifying it and putting it out there. So I like that instead of, I'm going to go to the gym every day in 2018 or whatever, I think that it's such a lot of pressure on the new year. Everyone's like, a fresh start, new beginning. It feels a little newish, but I mean, I think that's too much pressure. I think we all just have to love as much as we possibly can, especially in 2018. And I think in a lot of different situations, it's good to put that love in action. It's not enough anymore to, wish everybody else well. I think we've got to put love in action this year, and that can take a lot of different forms. I also wanted to say really quickly for an announcement. If you're in the Los Angeles area, and I'm going to put this all up on the website, but I just kind of sorted it out today. We're going to have a good to go workshop at the yoga studio called Still Yoga in Silver Lake. And it's going to be 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Bring your own booze. I'm going to bring some wine. I've got some fun deathy wine, rest in peace wines that I bring to the good to go parties. And for 2 hours, I'm going to get people in Los Angeles good to go. Now, I know that it's the same day as the Women's March. I am going to the Women's March. I'm going to march earlier in the day, and I'm going to hot-foot it back to Silver Lake. And we're going to have a good to go workshop / party at Still Yoga. And that's on Saturday, January 20th at 5 p.m. So definitely tune in. And also, if you guys aren't following me on Instagram, I would love for you to do so. I do post sometimes, I do cross post to the Good to Go Facebook page, but then sometimes I just post on Instagram. I'm gonna wrap up here in a minute, but I wanted to talk to you guys about how advanced planning and getting all of your advanced planning done can actually make your grief a lot less complicated. And I just met a woman today at the yoga studio who was talking about all of the death duties and how depleting it is and how you just want to lay in bed and yet you've got to do a million things. You've got to go to the bank and you've got to sort out that, and then you've got to talk to the funeral home, and you've got, there's just so much admin, administration that you have to do, and it's just so exhausting and overwhelming. And so if you actually fill out your advanced planning, it allows your loved ones the emotional space to not have to think about those things that they don't have answers for. They just go to your good to go departure file and it's there, and so it just frees up the brain space for you to focus on the love you had for that person and the love that they had for you. And that's the most important thing, is to be able to heal and grieve in a positive and healthy way. And just to give an example, when my mom died, obviously she didn't have that any advanced planning sorted, nothing like good to go. And so it took forever for her estate to close. With my granny, who I was then in charge of my granny after my mom died, and she was in a nursing home for a year, and then I was the executor of her will. That estate closed. It took like a year and a half, and that was like a nightmare. And then I created Good to Go, and then my dad decided to come to a party, and it was his suggestion, which I couldn't believe, because, you know, he's not an emotional, touchy-feely guy. And so he came to the party, and sadly, a year later, he died out of the blue. But he had all of his good to go paperwork filled out. And not only that, we had talked about it repeatedly. And I just posted a thing from Instagram about you never see a U-Haul behind a hearse. While my dad was still living, I said, let's clean out your place. Let's start cleaning out your place. I want to do this while you're here and you're alive. I don't want to do this, you know, traumatized and crying, you know, of you having just passed and then me trying to figure everything out. And so we literally would just I'd come over to his place, we'd just do a drawer, or we'd do his desk, or we'd do one closet. And then that got him inspired. And then he started going through stuff on his own. And he was actually thinking of moving. So he really did a really good job, you know, cleaning out the garage, cleaning out the house. And it was so much easier doing it with him. And then also when he was doing it by himself and he was checking in with me and saying, I cleaned out the garage and, you know, things like that. And then when he suddenly passed, I didn't have to do any of that. All I had to do was just go through. And he had already done, you know, a kind of clear out before then. So it was just so much easier. And then I placed his house for sale, and his estate was pretty much closed in 3 months, just 3 months. And during that time, because he filled out all the advanced planning paperwork and because we kept having the conversations about it, because I'm sure all of you know, if you have parents that are still alive and they're in their 70s or even later, all they talk about is dying and death and the end. And so that's all that was on my dad's mind. And so we talked about it all the time. But all of those conversations that we had, and they're the tough conversations, because you don't, as a kid, you don't want to face your parent dying, you know, if you've had a good relationship. And, you know, but because of those conversations, those are the ones that gave me the most comfort. And when he was in the hospital, I know I've said it before, but I mean, this is my mission. I've got to get this through to you guys. I'm yelling at you right now with love. It's just going to make your grief easier. And while Dad was in the hospital for 6 days and all kinds of shit was going down, I was rock solid in knowing what he would want. I knew his preference for his course of action. And that is an invaluable piece. You can't put a price tag on that. Hi, Anne. Happy New Year. We're just talking about how, you know, if you fill out the good to go paperwork and you do your advanced planning and you talk about your wishes with your loved ones, and that's not just your family, it's your friends, it's not just your partner, it's your friends, it's your soul cluster. As long as everybody is on the same page and everybody knows what to do, it's going to make it so much easier, so much easier. And it doesn't mean that you have to die. It could be in a case of an emergency kind of thing too. You know, I had a friend who, when she was in her 40s, she just had the flu. She was single, she had the flu, and she went and walked her dog and ended up passing out and going to the hospital because she had just like a stomach virus and she was just dehydrated and stuff. But there was no plan in place, nothing. And so she was calling me from the hospital. I'm just like, I don't know what needs help. You, the dog, what, where, you know, so it's always good to have a plan in place. Hi, Candace. Oh my goodness. There's so many of my friends that are joining in. I love it. I love you guys. Happy 2018. I wish nothing but love for you guys. Hope that you're enjoying yourself and surrounded by love and all good things. Candace is like, hey, Amy. Hey, Candace. What's up? But anyway, we're just talking about advanced planning, and a lot of people think it's awkward and it's, you know, grim and morbid. No. It's going to be grim and morbid when you don't know what the hell to do. So you've got to have the conversation with your peeps and talk about it. And I know when I was grieving, the only thing that was pretty much the only thing that was providing any kind of comfort for me were, you know, it was the conversations that I had. with my mom and my dad. Now, my mom, obviously I hadn't created Good to Go, so I was just, living my life, my TV producer, bohemian lifestyle in LA. So but we still talked a lot about death and about her life. And those are things too. Like, okay, so maybe you don't want to face the paperwork just yet. And you should do it when you're young and healthy, not when you're diagnosed with something. But at least talk about it. At least have conversations with your friends, even if it's a joke. A joke is better than nothing. My mom used to joke that she just wanted to be cremated and set out in a mayonnaise jar and set out for trash day. So, yeah, that's the thing. It's just like, okay. And so when she actually died, I was just like, okay, well, obviously I'm not going to put her in a mayonnaise jar, but if I would have, I know she would have been okay with that because we were joking about it, so even joking about it actually is an answer. It's better than nothing. And I know it's really awkward to talk about, and no one likes to think about it. And a lot of people, don't want to feel the emotions of talking about it, and I'm a little guilty of that. When my mom was diagnosed with Parkinson's, I told her, I said, it freaks me out so much that you need to confide in your friends about what you're going through, because it just freaks me out too much as your daughter. Like, I don't want to think about my mom having this illness and you suffering. It's just too much. It's just a knife in my heart. And, and I felt slightly guilty about that, but then she was happy that I was honest enough with her to just be like, it freaks me out. I just can't talk about it. But then in later years, before she died, we were talking about things, and about her life. And then I started asking her questions. Hey, do you think you had a good life? And what moments were some of your highlights? And, that's the thing about Good to Go too. It's not just a history of your logistics and your bills and your social media passwords and your banking information and what your wishes are for your funeral or cremation or whatever. It's a history of your joy. It's what things brought you joy while you were living. And we end on a positive note, just be glad that you're not dead and not dying. And it's best to get all this together now while you're young and healthy. So with that public service announcement, everybody get your advanced planning done. Anne says, Happy New Year. And I think you should do a party. I think you should do a Good to Go party too, Anne. I mean, go to my website, goodtogopeace.org. Follow me on Instagram, you guys. If you're around, Good to Go Peace. I'm also on Twitter. I rarely tweet, to be honest with you, but that's what the kids today are doing, so I do it. I want to see you over on Instagram. Thank you for tuning in. I'm excited. 2018, just more love. Just send more love, feel more love. Remember things in the, if you're feeling kind of down about, politics or where the world's going and you're feeling helpless, the one thing you have control over is how much you love. And so you just gotta love bigger in whatever form that is, whether it's volunteering, whether it's helping animals, whether it's making calls on a local politician, grassroots politician that's running for office, trying to change things. It's just, we gotta have a little more love and compassion in 2018, because 2017 was a scary year and it felt very, I don't know, it felt dark at times, so we're all in it together. We're all the same. And I just wanted to say Happy New Year, and I'll see you guys next week. And I'm going to have more details about the Good to Go party in Los Angeles on January 20th. And then I'm also going to be in Austin, Texas. So if you have any friends in Austin, please tell them that they can schedule a Good to Go party or a private consultation. And that is January. I'm going to be in Austin. I haven't made the flight details yet, or the reservations yet. I think it's January 24th to the 30th. So obviously details, I'll post more on the Facebook page. And Anne wants to know if I'm coming to Dayton, Ohio anytime soon. I don't have any plans to, But obviously, if there was a party, I tell everybody, you know, because I do travel across the country for good to go parties. And so if you want to have a good to go party and you're outside of Los Angeles, I say that you need to get 10 minimum people, or 10, not minimum people, but 10 people minimum. And because of the travel expense of me actually having to fly out. So if you wanted to get a good to go party, make sure you get 10 people, and I will be there. And you know, order the Marion's pizza and beer, and we'll get everybody in Dayton good to go. All right, you guys, I'm wishing you the best for a happy new year, and I will see you next week. All right, take care, you guys. Bye.